From the garage that sparked the global self-care movement, welcome to the Human Garage Experience, a podcast where we have unfiltered conversations on self-healing, consciousness, and optimizing your life with fascinating individuals changing the status quo. I'm your host, Garry Lineham, and I'm honored to have you here. Let's get down to it.
Alchemy, transformation, liberation, self-actualization, which are all terms that what I would say my whole mission is to show people the true purpose of sexual energy, which is our creative life force energy, the energy that makes new life. And if we're not literally procreating, we can use that energy as a procreative source in everything that we do. In our career, in our finances, and our family, of course, our intimate relationship, our physical health, essentially, that's a really big one. Our mental health, our creative genius, all of these things are infused with the power of this energy. But so my main message is really to show people that connection, because for most people, they've been so programmed, censored, traumatized around their sexual energy that they have such a disconnect with it, a full dissociation. And then that dissociation shows up in every single reproductive ailment there is, from difficult periods or menopause, growths on the reproductive organs, low libido, lack of performance, not being able to orgasm. Every single one of those things would be traced back to having stuck sexual energy. And most people are stuck in some way in that they are disconnected. Very few people are able to grow up in our culture, in almost any part of the world, without some kind of injury and insult and mixed messages around their sexual energy. So they have no idea that it's this energy source. It's this great power that they're afraid of and often have been hurt by in many cases too. And yet the medicine is through that energy. People can heal all of those things and much more through liberating the power of this energy, learning how to connect with it and use it consciously as a creative manifestation power and molder in their lives. But so, I'm most passionate about showing people that, right? Which is, sure, along the way, there can be techniques about a good or stimulating a woman, but those are the vehicle. But the essence is that this is a superpower source that most people have no idea how it works and its true nature.
There's programming from our parents, there's programming in society. Like, where are you seeing the problem begin with people?
All of the above, but I think it's a pervasive, deliberate effort to cut people off from that energy. If you have a populace who has been handicapped, right, and every single person has some level of this insult, trauma, injury in themselves, they're cut off from the most powerful life force energy that we're all channeling literally at our fingertips. So all of the above, right? Having these ideas about sex that we see in media, pop songs, advertising culture that cheapens sex, put a big emphasis on its casual, throwaway nature, really taking away the sacred element of it, making it this kind of cheesy marketing technique. Why is free and everywhere, right? But I, talking about sacred sexuality and the power of sexuality, I'm quite censored, right? Considered like very dangerous person. A wealthy person is a dangerous person. And by wealth, I mean anyone who's really connected to that energy, because it is, as I say, orgasmic enlightenment. The ancients in Taoist and Tantric times, like 5,000 years ago in China and India, looked at our sexual energy as a way that we could propel ourselves into higher states of consciousness, right? So that is where sex and God come together, right? Where in our culture, we're taught that those are polar opposites, except in the basement of a Catholic church, which is where we don't really want them to come together, right? But that's a tool to destroy that energy in people. So I think there's so many things, the way that women birth children in these industrialized settings where they get traumatized through what ought to be the biggest orgasm of their lives. Birth was not meant to be painful or traumatic. It was meant to be the most easy, pleasurable experience that we can have. And as a woman, an essential one, because that's what imprints us to be powerful mothers, confident, intuitively driven mothers. It bonds a couple, the man and the woman feel connected. Whereas in most hospital settings, a man is basically a cuckold in the birth experience, right? Some other man comes and literally his wife, and then, you know, prods her, probes her, puts machines on her, penetrates her, cuts her open, and then hands over the baby. And both people are like, okay.
Sometimes
thanks.
even take the baby too. Yeah.
Well, they take it, they inject things in it. They actually abuse boy babies. They take their penises away, cut them off. So, you know, all of these things are done very early on to imprint children and babies and the parents in the most negative way. And then all of the, you know, religious messaging, parental, family messaging that we get, there's so much that layers on top of the innate power that we all have. And that's something that I call the Anami guarantee, is that all women are multi-orgasmic. They can have G-spot orgasms, cervical orgasms, ejaculate across the room. Every woman has a high libido. Every woman is able to lubricate naturally and without aid. Every woman can glide through her periods and menopause without exogenous hormones. Every man can be multi-orgasmic. Every single person can. I guarantee that. The only reason why they don't is because of all of these factors, all of these obstacles that are put in place, that the beautiful thing is when we transcend them and solve them and heal them, the alchemy and the taboo, anything that's taboo is a huge gold mine for us, right? When we liberate that energy, it's like when you must see some stuck spot that you open up and the release the person gets, and then the gifts that are available to them to integrate within their whole being, parts of themselves that have been cut off, shadow pieces over the years, decades, and perhaps lifetimes that they now have available to integrate as their full whole self. And sexuality is one of the most powerful ways to very quickly integrate all those pieces. And again, it's so mysterious and suppressed in the place most people would never think to look.
Uniquely, we agree on almost all of that process. You know, one of the things we're experts in programming the fluid adaptive biological computing system. And the way that I got to this point clinically, medically, was that I'm a systems guy, and I go to the origin of how something's made and how it's used in order to figure out everything in between. And when I got into healthcare, through my own pain and dysfunction all these years, I just went to the origin and to the use. And in between there is the truth. And what I found is, like you said, hospitals are where we go to die. And hospitals, prisons, and schools all are identical. They have the same look and the same feel for a reason. The idea of the birthing process, I came upon myself before I found that there was lotus birthing, that the placenta is supposed to be attached for 3 days. And that's a programming mechanism.
Dolphin birthing, orgasmic birthing.
And I've worked with a couple orgasmic birthers, and clinically, and helping them with their bodies and other things. And I also grew up in Judeo-Christian, so I was circumcised, and I can track circumcision to a reduction in our growth template. And because as I've removed the effects of circumcision on myself, I'm actually growing, physically growing.
Yeah, like in height?
In height, yeah. 3 inches.
Pretty
And
traumatic at that age to cut something.
At any age, but hey, welcome to Earth. We're going to cut your off.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe that anybody could buy into that narrative. It's just like, what do you call it? That, need to justify, right? Like so terrified to actually acknowledge the truth.
They're enslavement techniques. These are all enslavement techniques. I mean, right down to how we're taught that we live. I mean, we are challenging the narrative of who we are as human beings. We started off fixing bodies, and then found that fascia was a conduit, and then started deconstructing the myth of who we are. I mean, the platform of what we do and why Human Garage and Fascia Maneuvers works is because we literally say that the way that we describe our body isn't the way. Like our bones are not structured, they don't touch. Who the hell thought that was a good idea? The brain actually doesn't move fast enough to move the muscles. We can prove that. The muscles don't move the body. Like who thought that was? And we break this down in little ways, but we give people anecdotal ways to experience this, and then we let them try to come to their own reasoning. Yeah.
You know, there was a number of things to unpack there. And I think that, like, one of the ones is, how are you helping people come out of being blocked? Because you're saying that they're blocked, their sexual energy, they're not utilizing it properly. Like, what is your first step process? Like, if I were to sit down and I did a consultation or a session with you, or I was trying to understand how to open up, what do you do with somebody?
Right. After years, decades of doing this work, what I've seen so much is the outer expression of somebody in their life is directly impacted by how sexually open, released, expressive they are. And so I could look at both your health symptoms, but also what you've achieved, where you are feeling stuck in your life, and make those parallels. Like, for example, over the years of working with men, they're occupying their masculine energy in the same way, right? They're strong, they're powerful, they're confident, they achieve, you don't mess with them, right? They're this gorgeous expression of archetypal masculine energy. And the guys who weren't doing that, they were contracted, apologetic, not occupying themselves, their erections were like this, right? So there's all these parallels as our sexual energy as the essence of who we are. So if I see a map of what's happening, I can get to, ideas of where somebody is stuck. But basically, the process is very much the same. Is this idea of recognizing the blocks that we have. Those might just be beliefs, ideas that we've internalized. Like for women, a big one is Madonna whore, right? We hear that one ad infinitum. You can't even watch a Hollywood a Hollywood movie without having, a good woman, and then there's a hooker. Like, why is there a token hooker in every single movie, right? Why? Because we just have to keep reinforcing this idea of Madonna whore, Madonna whore, Madonna whore in women, right? So women are either good girls who, you have to really talk me into sex, or they're like wild, sexual, voracious vixens. But there isn't this happy medium for women to exist in. And so that is a huge thing that unless they really look at it, right, and reconcile these two opposing viewpoints and energies in themselves, they're stuck. They're in this oscillation or just stuck place, right? So some of it is making the unconscious conscious, realizing some of the programming that's out there that we, even to the best of our knowledge and ability, we don't want to buy into. Like, I'm an educated feminist, I don't believe that, but you've been bombarded with it since birth. Right. And so, okay, maybe I have picked up some of that unbeknownst and unwittingly, for me. And then just learning how to harness your sexual energy. Like, for example, so much of what we see, let's say a movie sex scene is 20 seconds of pumping, the guy has an orgasm, the woman, maybe not, who cares? Like, it's the same, things that we see over and over again, right? So people start to think that, I guess, intercourse only lasts for 3 minutes. Anybody who's having, and statistically, that's true. 75% of men ejaculate within 3 minutes, 95% within 5 minutes. No woman is going to achieve orgasm in that amount of time. Every woman will be sexually unfulfilled and unsatisfied. That relationship will be full of strife because she'll resent him for just using her as a stress relief deposit. And he'll feel that he'll feel a sense of shame and embarrassment because he's really not living up to his true potential. All these dynamics are going on under the surface. So a big part of it is re-educating people about what's possible, right? Like, I would say a minimum of an hour of intercourse. I prescribe 3-hour weekly sex dates, minimum, where you have 3 hours. It's not dinner, it's not a movie, it's not a walk in the park. It's 3 hours naked in bed, whatever you want to be doing, but it has to be some kind of physical engagement. And you have enough time there to unpack, right? You have that time then to expand the whole sexual experience. If things come up, you can work through them. So we've had women men and women, but I'll give an example of a woman who had been sexually abused when she was younger. She was terrified to put anything inside her vagina, right? Her own fingers. I worked with these Jade yoni eggs to help women strengthen their pelvic floors and regain that connection. So she trusted me and the process. And so she committed to every day doing a little bit of that work. So she'd set a timer. First day was 30 seconds of putting this egg inside of her vagina. The next day was 60 seconds. The next day was a minute and a half. And even though she would have anxiety, panic attacks, all this energy coming up in her body, she breathed through it. She allowed these feelings and memories, experiences to come up. And then after, several weeks or, maybe like a month, she was in this full place of being able to, she was having actually like full emotional reaction. She was laughing hysterically, crying hysterically. All of this locked up emotion that had been stored in her tissues was now emerging with the attention on it, with the physical stimulation, with the self-love of, I'm finally going to listen to you. Where in the medical profession, they'd be like, oh, you can't open your vagina. Here's a device to pry it open. Literally give women
or an
this
injection.
thing. Or surgery, or antidepressants, like totally random, useless
enhance
Band-Aids, rather than going into the root and the heart of the problem, right? Where she's doing her own, what I call it demon hunting. Now that I've been calling it that for decades, but now we call it shadow work. Where you go in there to confront your own source of the injury. Right? And sometimes it's helpful to have outside tools to do that, outside support, but you can actually literally go inside your own body and do it yourself as well. As long as you have that wherewithal to be slow and compassionate and patient, right? And you're not trying to force the issue, right? Like shove something in your vagina to pry it open. So then now she describes herself. She gets high from her own vagina. She's now this radiant, sensual, expressive, orgasmic woman who was stuck. But the way through that was the slow, conscious reclamation of that energy and those parts of her body, those experiences. So I think that the methodical commitment to going slow, and like I said, making the unconscious conscious, recognizing that there's places that we've been halted, suppressed along the way, and going back to retrieve these pieces of ourselves. And then me showing people techniques to then consciously harness that energy. And a big part of that is breath. Breath moves energy throughout the body, and sexual energy is no exception by deep breathing. And most people shallow breathe, they hold the breath when they get sexually excited, when they get close to orgasm. So just by breathing deeply, being present, maintaining eye contact with their partner throughout the process, they can help stave off that impulse to disconnect and to dissociate, right? And to be present and let whatever is there come to the surface. So I'm all about a multidimensional approach to healing, right? There's the physical, sexual approach, emotional, mental, and then energetic and spiritual work, that if we're hitting it on all those angles, we'll have the most lasting and permanent success, rather than, again, like an allopathic Band-Aid, right? It's not a solution. It's just a distraction.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's interesting because you mentioned something earlier, which is men are underperforming and women are understimulated. And so men are leaving embarrassed, feeling emasculated, and women are feeling unnurtured, right? So that's a pretty big issue in society today. And men are being, they're the only ones who get to have the orgasm, and women, it's just too complicated, right? So,
basically.
So really the question is...
Here's a vibrator for Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Anything that can disconnect us from each other. So what do you do when that's a situation? One, for the man, and then two, for the woman. Like, how are you helping men perform better, and how are you helping women get what they need as a result of that?
For men, the number one sexual skill they can build is stamina, right? And so, like I mentioned earlier, a minimum of 1 hour, but ideally several hours. That's when you hit the sexual goal. That's when you imagine that when you go to bed with your partner, you're plugging in, which we are. We are literally putting something into a socket to recharge each other. That's what's meant to happen in sex. The longer we have sex for, the more of a charge up that we get. In a short session, somebody could say they don't even like sex because if they're having 3-minute encounters, I agree, why would you want to, right? I understand. But if you're having what you're meant to be having, I often say if sex isn't making you feel deeply released, pleasured, ecstatic, transformed, and like it changed your life, you're doing it wrong, right? You're supposed to feel all those things after every encounter. So you go to bed, you recharge. The longer you have sex for, the more of that energy you cultivate and you build and you have to use. So you feel more sexually fulfilled. You have more of this tangible energy to then infuse out into the world to heal yourself, to heal each other. So stamina is huge for men. And then that carries out into their life, right? In the archetypal masculine, we want a man that can hold the ground, hold the fort, can protect the realm, stand firm, right? Like he's someone we can rely on. That's the role of the masculine, right? To be the protector of the realm and his woman and his family. So for women, then the opposite skill or complementary skill would be the art of opening and surrender. Really being able to deeply open, surrender, let go, trust herself, trust her partner, trust the universe, and free fall. That's her superpower, is surrender, right? And when she can give that to the man, he feels built up. That charges him up. When the man can gift the woman that solidity, that strength, I've got you, I've got this, that nourishes her and balances out her. And then we have that archetypal yin yang happening. So those are the two big skills. But then, you know, the umbrella on all of that is the block removal and then showing them how to actually consciously use this sexual energy.
I give 10 hours of conversations on what you already said.
Yeah. But semen retention, I mean, there's a big conversation. And I sit and I think about that because it's so hard to know and understand what's real anymore in the information that's out there. Whether semen retention is a good thing or whether it's...
if you check it with your own body, don't you know?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, and I've played with the way that I feel in different ways doing it. But to me, it's interesting, like, it almost feels like there's programming to prevent us from having these types of experiences. But when you look at semen retention, it's in ancient practices. So it's kind of conflicting because in a way you're stopping yourself from feeling one of the greatest sensations in your body.
I think what you might be getting at is there's some different understandings of what that is, right? Like some people might think, like I heard this guy, this one he got so wrong. He's like, yeah, why would not having sex be good for you? I'm like, that's not what semen retention is. Like, it's
just the misunderstandings around it. Exactly.
Well, look, the way that I teach it is the best of all possible worlds, which is showing men how to orgasm without ejaculation.
Exactly.
So the main ideology behind semen retention was that men go to a lot of effort, their bodies go to a lot of effort to create the most high-grade quality nutrients to infuse into an ejaculation to create new life. And that if men are just willy-nilly throwing those things all over the place, that's depleting men on a huge level, right? And there's history of that. Like even Galen and Hippocrates discussed that we shouldn't be just throwing out these humors of the body. And it wasn't a moral thing. This is an energetic depletion of the man and even of the spirit of the man. So the Taoists and Tantric people talk about, yes, this idea of semen retention, but they go further than that. That might be the surface understanding of it, but you can learn to orgasm, have a full body, even better, more powerful orgasm than this piddly little like terminal orgasm most men have that they think is already the bee's knees.
The peak, yeah.
And have something 100 times better, more powerful, not release that fluid that goes back into your system to regenerate you. And then you walk out best of all possible worlds, right? You've got your retention of these fluids. You feel this ecstatic pleasure. You've had all of this nourishment, full body, energetic high from doing this. And you want to go run a marathon after you have sex, right? That's the barometer that I use. Do you want to run a marathon or do you want to pass out and go to sleep? And I actually had a ultra marathoner come to me because he's like, yeah, I want to learn how to run a marathon before and after. And he does. He's at his highest level of performance through doing my work and applying these principles and learning to harness and harvest that energy rather than just dump it out. So that, to me, that's the Anami understanding of semen retention.
A lot of high performance areas, no, they tell you that you shouldn't have sex for like a week or 2 weeks before a certain performance because of the body and all of this. And like just all of the ideas around it, like from what you were saying about women, like prostitutes at the beginning of time, they were the ones that took the trauma away from men that came from war before they went back home.
Right.
No, it was like a sacred work. They were part of even, I think, the church at some point because they
There's a
were
healing
taking the
culture.
trauma.
Yeah.
They're therapists.
Temples,
Yeah.
They were
alchemy.
therapists. Yeah.
No, and like now it's like you said, it's these two polarities where either you're the good woman that they bring home and introduce to your mother, or you're like the slutty one that they keep under the table. So
The prostitutes would meet the men at the edge of the battlefield, so that the men wouldn't bring the anger to the
to
family,
their homes,
to the
exactly.
family. Yeah.
They were therapists.
And they were therapists, but it wasn't seen that way. It wasn't seen like what we've done in society today is we've taken common things, whether it's nicotine, we've made bad, which is actually good. We've taken everything that's good and we've made it bad. You're talking about being censored. You're getting censored because you're actually talking about the good version of it. We get censored for talking about minerals because and hydration in a good way when we're actually showing hydration in a bad way. So since the beginning of time, we've been playing with humanity and controlling them through ideas, and we make those ideas popular or dispopular. And it is confusing, but you asked him, don't you know in your own body? Exactly. We are experts at knowing in our own body. Literally, we teach that. And the challenge is people today are not connected with their own body, so they're looking for sources of information that they trust. And then it becomes, who do I trust? And now the trust factor is a social media game. Well, I trust this person more than that person. I trusted this person until I found this. And this happens in every aspect of humanity. And it goes right down to food, it goes down to sleep, and there's all these different belief systems. And the one thing that we haven't taught is people to trust themselves. And that's part of what I see you starting to engage in is to come back to an awareness of self.
Absolutely. And that's my goal in the work, is to bring people back to that place. And so in that sense of what do I teach, right? It's not, I realized really early on in my work, through one of my first private clients, was that, a list of techniques that you give someone, okay, take this home, wasn't going to solve a problem if someone didn't want to perform oral sex on her partner. So that was the heart of the issue, is like, well, why is that connection not happening and how do we remedy that? And so I'm almost loath to give techniques sometimes. There's certain things that need them, then I'll give them. But my goal is to get people to be so in tune with themselves that they can read the energy of their own body, read the energy of their partner, right? So rather than learning a choreographed dance, they become their own inner source of music, right? They can read their own rhythm, tune into their partner's rhythm, and that becomes the sexual
Strategy
dance.
before tactics, desire before, because you have the desire, you'll figure it out. This has been one of the bigger issues, is that people, we said earlier, weren't connected to themselves. So it draws up all these. I'll tell you my personal experience. I went through life, having sex and then getting married, having sex, and feeling a shame that came out of that. Well, I didn't realize that shame was connected to a sexual abuse until only a couple of years ago. I connected with the sexual abuse from a parent. And I didn't connect those two things because that's programming. That's programming of my individual experience through pedophilia that happened, and it happens widely. And I don't know what your exposure to that is, but I can tell you right now that in North America, it's 2/3 of the people have had that experience in some way from a family member or something like that. And we work with it on the other side. But there's these subtle programming techniques which changed my experience or my ability to understand the experience, because I just thought it was, I thought it was weird, but why do I feel this shame or this guilt every time that I have sex? And that happened my entire life. And this is what's going on, and it's at the society level, and it's breaking down those barriers, which again is caught in the tissue. And then the mother has a child, and she passes in the first 8 months of the pregnancy. All of the feelings and the emotions of the mother are passed to the child. The child doesn't have a neocortex, so the child can't actually be autonomous or self-regulate from the mother's experience. And that is the programming that goes generation to generation. So what we've been working on is, what we found is ways to actually break that programming mechanism. That's what we've been doing with ourselves, and that's what happened to me. But it's deep. This is deep. It's programming at the society level. We say that the body is a fluid adaptive biological computing system. And it's programmed like any other computer. And the foundation of my work was to take all the mystery out of it, treat the body like a computer, and break down the systems and learn the programming language. And that's what we've been doing with fascial maneuvers. And application of deprogramming in the fascial tissue leads to awareness. And this is a journey that we started, because I didn't start it in the clinic. I started it when we started doing these maneuvers every day. And that's what finally started the healing process.
In you?
Well, not just in me, in all of us, and with our families, and now with tens of millions of people around the world. And because we have such a broad audience, we get hundreds and hundreds of thousands of live testimonials. We made it cool for people to talk about their shit.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's sexual or abuse, like, we talk about our stuff so openly that like, when I found out about my abuse, first thing I did is I told everybody. And it was hard. It's hard to talk about that. But what it does is it opened up everybody else, and give them permission to do it. And that's been the foundation of our whole movement.
And even understanding that some things, could be an abuse that we don't see as one. No, because like, how many times, like, women, we have said yes to something that we don't want to? How many times have you let somebody inside your body that you truly didn't want to? No, or that you let them touch you in a way, or like do something just out of like, well, I'm in this, I might as well, be in it. No, and it could be a one-night stand, it could be a party, it could be even in your own relationship. A lot of times, like what you were sharing, you don't even want to, but because there's the commitment, you allow it to happen. And like that dissociation and having to like literally cut the communication between your body and your mind and your couple, that is a way of abusing yourself. By self-choice, that creates a lot of impact. And then it's like, well, I haven't had an orgasm in 5 years, or I'm completely numb, but you're choosing these things also every day of disconnection because you are in a relationship sometimes, or you are in a situation that, you don't see it as self-abuse sometimes.
And programming, because it happens like most abuse. And I've dealt with kids who've been held in cages, all the way to ritual rapes and abuse. I've had, through my career, some of the most horrific things that anybody could see. And what I find is that in the intimate abuses, especially within family or within friends and stuff like that, the person being abused wants to protect the abuser because they feel that was normal. No, that's okay. That's not wrong. And because it's natural for us to tell a story to make something that's not okay in order to function. So we compartmentalize. We say that actually was okay in that experience. And then that's the history that we live with and we pass from generation to generation.
Well, perfect example, circumcision in men. And with what you were saying, lube in women, right? Where lube is this institutionalized, it's women's best friend, but it's the biggest tool for overriding your body.
100%.
And this is where I've asserted this for years is that if a woman's not wet, she's not ready. We need to listen to the body. When she's wet, she's ready. Oh, no. There's no connection there. Lube is good for you. Like people fighting for the right to lube, right? And I've often made this parallel, lube and the demise of the American dream, where it's like, where we used to be this achievement oriented, we can do anything, we can solve any problem. But now it's like, no, just use the bottle of lube. It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's like, no, but you can do it without. You ought to be doing it without. And we're further traumatizing the body with this belittling, patronizing way of treating our own bodies and creating more of a problem, more disconnect, more dissociation by not listening to the signs of the body. And then there's so much of the Western programming that's shown us, well, the body is kind of dumb. Why would we listen to the body, right? Like women aren't wet. Well, that has nothing to do with their arousal. Like what, right? We have, you must see this all the time where people have been so like the body is dumb, right? Why would we listen to anything that the body is saying?
That's the opposite of our message, but that's the entire programming is that we actually see the body is intelligent and the brain, well, technically the brain is less intelligent. The body has the intelligence. The brain is a processor. The body is the computing system.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If you're dealing with chronic inflammation, aches, pains in your joints, I use PowerKirk 30. This is a product I take literally everywhere with me. We travel the world all the time, and when you fly, your feet swell, you feel achy and pain in your body in different areas. And I'm not a big believer in using supplements to take responsibility for my entire healing process, but I do use PowerKirk 30 every once in a while when I'm feeling those aches and pains, inflamed, and I just need a little bit of help. So if you've never tried PowerKirk 30, it is the world's strongest anti-inflammatory. One capsule is equivalent to an entire bottle of another product that has curcumin in it. This is a patented product. It is the world's strongest, and I'm super excited to share it with you. You can find the link to PowerKirk 30 in the show notes below. And what are you, is there something that you're specifically seeing in what women are putting inside of themselves that is really impacting them?
Well, I've been a proponent of holistic methods for decades, right? In my own life, that's the foundation of my work. And so, I was on the pill for 2 years when I was a teenager, went off it. I've never been on it again. And so I was practicing natural body observing birth control in my early 20s and all the way through my entire reproductive era. And so that's what I've taught women, right? I've never been, for years, like women would say, even in the supposedly more holistic world, well, it's okay if women go on the pill if they have difficult periods. And I'd be like, learn, figure it out, right? Like people giving excuses, making excuses, right? Like patting people on the head. There, little girl. It's okay if you need to take that sometimes, right? It's kind of embarrassing, really. But, I've been quite strong in that idea that we can heal anything. There's a natural solution for everything. We just have to find it, right? And so, no condom chemicals, no hormonal anything. I don't believe in supplementing any exogenous hormones at any age or stage, menopause especially. Like that's the allopathic cash cow is menopausal women. This notion that the body just dies for women. Women really need hormones for their entire lives.
Can I lean into that?
Sure.
Because we have tens of thousands of women coming out of menopause between 55 and 67. I've been talking to a lady for a year at 65 who has been out of menopause for a year who's planning on having another child. Menopause is a myth. It's congestion of the fallopian tubes. Yeah. And so what we've been doing is we couldn't prove the science, so we just have the results now, and we're unraveling these. And it's important in this conversation even for people to realize that all of this is myths. I go back to the way we live. Show me one period piece where a woman is writing about a painful period 100 years ago. Show me, it doesn't exist. Show me another one where they talk about menopause. Our great-grandmothers cycled to the day they died. These are all myths. They're complete myths. We've bought it as a society, like even the aging myth. So one of the things is in our process, Jay and I just had a biological age test done. And I'm 56. My biological age is 30. is a 17. My red blood cell count is that of an 8-year-old. And this has happened in the last 6 years from living the lifestyle that we live. And we have all these, we get a lot of biohackers, obviously. And they're trying to slow their aging down to 0.8 every year, where we're at -2. And this is all natural. So we believe in the body's ability to heal in every way, shape, or form. And we also believe that when the body is, when we remove the chemicals and the stress and the trauma from the body naturally performs at any age.
Does that mean I perform like a 17-year-old? Not just kidding.
I don't know. We have to. I don't know. I have to ask.
Gone in
Does he
60
perform
seconds.
like a
I'm
17?
not
Don't
gonna
answer.
go there.
But I want to ask something, because birth control is programmed systemically. Like, people are afraid to have kids. It's taught to be like, birth is a burden. It's painful. It hurts. Kids are expensive. Blah 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 blah. The programming is super deep.
Yeah.
So then there's fear mongering around that. People are then taking birth control, which is creating an infertility issue. But there's a natural way to watch your rhythm and to protect yourself from having an unwanted child. Can you talk about, because you brought up that there's another way to do it. Can you dive more into that for people who don't know how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, look, for starters, though, to sum that up, is women are convinced they need to be on hormones from puberty until death. Right now, the messaging is go on the pill for any reason: birth control, bad acne, difficult periods when you're in your teens.
If you're not regular.
Yeah, whatever it is. And then when you want to have a baby, they go off it. They can't have babies now because they've been messing with their hormones. Their hormones never had the chance to freely, naturally evolve and express. And then they have to do IVF. Then maybe they manage to get a baby or two. And then they get into their perimenopause. What's that?
Or 6.
Or 6.
Because of the IVF.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Twins and
Yeah.
yeah.
And then they get into, now they're trying to sell perimenopause as something that happens in your mid-30s. And so you need to go on hormones. And I quoted one of these Meno shills that I quoted, and she literally said that she will be on estradiol until the day she dies, right? So she's making the argument that women are so useless that they need to be medicated their entire lives. The female body is so completely inept, right? It's just shocking to hear these things come out. And then women are like, yeah, that's my problem. I just need to take drugs every day, because they want an easy fix rather than getting to the root cause and doing a deeper dive. So birth control, what I teach women is learning the rhythms of your own body. Just like any other female in the animal kingdom, the female shows visible signs of estrus. We are no different. Yeah. And so you learn to observe that. It might take you a few months to get confident in it. The signs are all there. Women feel them, they see them. They just don't make the connection that these signs have anything to do with their fertility until somebody explains that to them and shows them how to do it. And then that's the most empowering thing you could have, because your partner can be involved in that process. The woman knows her cycles and her rhythms, and you can learn when to get pregnant or to avoid intercourse to prevent pregnancy. And the other thing that I think is really interesting that you've said is that this whole programming around anti-family, giving birth is scary, and instead of us really, and I love that there's this whole trad wife, trad family resurgence happening now that's really
I've heard the comment, but I have no idea what it means. We've been in isolation for
I'm not sure of all these terms.
We've been hiding in a mountain for the last 6 years.
So a return to this idea of the homestead, couples having big families. I think even in 2020, this idea, let's get out of the city and into the country where
that was us.
Nobody can tell us what to do.
We were doing it without...
have our own cows and chickens and land and food production that nobody can hold that against us, right? Try to make us do things we don't want to because they're, blackmailing us, right? By not letting us get to these things. And the idea of having big families, right? And really having the family as a value. I've been living and spending time in Bali and Indonesia since 1997. And there, the very first priority in their lives is God. Number 2 is family. And a distant third is work. And so everything revolves around God and the family. It's your entire lives, like 90% of your lives. And then 10%, yeah, we have to work, but if there's an important ceremony, if there's a family event, we don't go to work. And everyone understands that. Right. And so I took my son to live there when he was a baby so that we could be immersed in that energy field, right, of the love of and appreciation of young children and the family and God and spirit, to get him just flowing in the plasma of what that is like, right? So he's got that energy and ideas embedded into his being from the youngest possible age. This is what life is meant to be like, not this isolated nuclear family struggle idea that is so prevalent in Western and especially North American culture.
I grew up with programming, we all did, and we were unraveling the programming when the pandemic came and we were living in the mountains. It was funny because from a business perspective, I've had a lot of businesses and like really successful ones in the tens of millions of dollars, and I would refer to things like Bug's Life. I used to use those when I would teach because of how they would inform society and stuff like that. And we went back and we were watching it during the pandemic, and it at the same time it hit us. It was like, oh my God, that's not a reflection of society. That was telling our kids how to be, and that's when the depth of the programming. And conversely, we're actually creating animated children's series right now. They'll be out in the summer. Because the programming is so deep, the only way to combat the programming is to combat it at the level at which it's been doing.
Smart kid cartoons.
We're doing that. We've been working with Hollywood animators coming out this summer. It's going to start with 80 series of kids who become superheroes. We have Zach Levy coming here again, who's Shazam, and we've done work with him in the past. What I love, and he's got such this great message behind his acting career. And the idea I loved about Shazam is that it makes any kid into a superhero. All they have to do is invoke the words. We're doing the same kind of idea to help the parents and grandparents, because they're the people that actually are going to have the physical problems in the next 36 months because of what's happened in society. And the programming level at which we're working on, that's really where we have to go back to. But we're using the current modalities of programming humans, and we're going back at it at that level.
Yeah, it's we've been using this word a lot, programming and reprogramming, and so much of our collective work is about that. And sometimes when you see, that's one of the first entry points in, right, is to show people a different way. Because a lot of times people have some intuitive sense, unease, like this isn't quite right. And I found that in my work with sexuality, people looked at the messaging they've been given and they're like, I don't know, that's not quite right, but what's the other way, right? If you don't see it, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
I only know what I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the scope of what I know.
Yeah, and so to be giving people these alternative pathways, and then I love to see that light bulb of recognition of like, yes, right, that is what it is. That makes sense. That's what I've always intuitively felt, that sex was this sacred portal into other dimensions, right? Rather than just this like off fest to put yourself to sleep, And so I love being part of that process of illumination for people, and then as we all are here, guiding a different pathway to that inner knowing that's already there, but helping people to just get righted in the compass.
So there's a lot of different belief systems that have been propagated around the world, everything from the single family in China, single child families in China, which caused a big issue, all the way to in our country here, different topics like multiple wives. All of these different things are systems or ways of getting an outcome in some sort of control mechanism. Like where do you stand on like topics like, let's take one right now, like monogamy? What are your thoughts on that?
I talk about something I've dubbed conscious monogamy, and that I would say that 99.9% of people aren't monogamous, even if they think they are.
Right.
Because maybe they're not having sex with other people, but they're not really having sex with their partner. They're not really going deep, abandoning themselves, exposing themselves on a deep, vulnerable level. They're not emotionally opening, cracking themselves open, and really.
So you're back to the whole experience, which is not about penetration, it's about creation. And that partner, the intimacy with your partner is part of that language and that discussion, that depth that comes with sex, or should come with sex.
I'd say it's essential to get to the kinds of life-changing places that I talk about. You have to have that deep emotional and sexual surrender with each other. If you don't have that, you could be having what I call junk food sex versus gourmet sex, right? Just having lots of sex isn't the key to the kingdom.
So where do you split the hairs then? So, because now the conversation is it cheating if I have this? You know, the common one you see right now is I got my work wife or work husband, and which is this really weird thing that just kind of popped out, and people started saying it to me, and you know, and they started using this language, and I'm like, somehow I had missed it. I'd been in clinic for a decade, and I'd missed all the corporate stuff, and this work wife and work husband came up, and stuff like that. That is challenging these intimate relationships, technically.
Well, okay, what I've seen is when a couple then, like I have couples come to me who think they have a good sex life. They have sex a few times a week. They both have orgasms. They think they're doing pretty good. And then they dive into my work and they see how much further and elevated they can go, right? Where all these things I've talked about, the deeper levels of orgasm for women, men learning how to orgasm without ejaculation. What happens when you have 3-hour sex dates and you have them a lot, right? What happens when you're consciously using your sexual energy? Your whole lives change. Yeah. And so then these couples are like, okay, we thought we were having good sex, but we weren't. Right? And they were doing probably better than the average couple, but nowhere near what we aspire to in Anami land with superpower couples, right? This gourmet sex elevation that I've talked about. So in conscious monogamy, you have this incredible level of vulnerability, no walls up, everything's down, deep connection. And that is the ultimate nourishment and sustenance. And when a couple has that, they're not looking for little connections here and there. When couples are looking for that, whether it's emotionally or sexually, or, oh, is that just the tip? Or, you know, whatever gray territory they try to rationalize, right? That is because there's a deficiency in the relationship, 100%. I will stand by that every time. So whatever rationalization people want to give it, they're so liberated, they're in polyamorous relationships, or this is okay. I argue that it's not. Whatever, it's okay or not okay. People can do whatever they want. I don't care. But if you really want that gourmet sex connection that changes your life, you're all in with your partner. And when you're all in, you do not, oh, what's happening over there?
There's a conversation that's starting to happen, though, in the evolution of humans. We came out of the age of Pisces for several thousand years, and we're going to the age of Aquarius. And in the age of Aquarius, it challenges all the conventional ideas of what relationships are. And I'm just talking from what people say, or what spiritual text says, or what books have said and channelers have said about the age of Aquarius. And this is putting this whole idea that people in the age of Pisces were meant to be together forever. In the age of Aquarius, they're saying that this might not be the case. And I have no idea. I'm just reporting what is actually starting to happen, or the conversations that are happening. How does that fit? Is there room for potentially to have multiple relationships and have that connection, or can it only happen in one relationship? In the middle of all these great conversations, sometimes you still need to take a minute to stop and breathe. Let's do that together. We're going to breathe 3 times through the mouth and 3 times through the nose. This is going to activate and rebalance your parasympathetic nervous system so you can absorb more. Breathe in with me through your mouth. 2. 3. 4. Now 3 breaths through the nose. 2. 3. Now with that simple 6-breath reset, you can go back and enjoy more content.
What I've seen is that people go the furthest and the farthest and the deepest, furthest and farthest, go the furthest and the deepest when they are immersed in that deep connection with each other. And the more that you open up that portal, it's like you have an oven that's cooking, baking a cake, right? The more you open up that oven, you let the heat come out and you're not concentrating all the powers of that heat onto what you're trying to create. And so I don't have any judgment in this. My assessment is strictly from an energetic one. Who is working at the highest level of their collective energy versus who seems to have more energy leakages? And I would say in that container, they're working at a more concentrated level than people who are leaking out.
Do you think we're evolving? And the reason why I say this is that because, yes, that is the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. We're actually having multiple relationships.
Well, define multiple relationships.
In every aspect. And in community, we're going back into community in a way that we never have before. And we're like tipping into something that we can see that there's a physical evolution of the human species. Like we're actually documenting that. And the species is changing. There's elevation of consciousness. And so that's challenging the norms of society. And first of all, I agree with everything that you've said so far. I'm just asking the question, do you see there's a potential that relationships change as species evolve?
I think the evolution is toward the dynamic I'm talking about, because what I would say is we've never really had it. What people have defined as monogamy is more of a duty-bound, tacit acceptance and performance-oriented, like, yeah, we're together, but we're not really. We're not emotionally deeply connected. We're not sexually deeply connected. May or may not have sex with other people. Let's say they don't, but they're actually not together. That's not monogamy. Mm-hmm. That's not the true, my definition,
Sure,
where you gain the power out of it. So I'd say we largely have never had that. So if we've never had that, and my idea is we're evolving into a place where we actually have that deep connection with each other, that is new. That is an evolution.
Well, partly this comes from a standpoint of we only know history from what we've been told. And,
sure.
And we were told that we had to survive and that we had to work together. And we're actually finding out that that's a lot of the history that we've been told is not true.
Well, I agree with that.
Like right down to where we live and who built the place.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So in other words, it's to look at history as a way to understand today doesn't exactly put us in a very confident place. I think there's something happening in the world that we can't really explain. If you look at what's inside and then what's outside, at the cellular level, at the universe level, it operates the same. And then technically the human being itself should operate the same. So from a biological perspective, and again, I'm not disagreeing because I actually agree with what you're saying, but from a biological perspective, if cells only communicate with a single cell, they die. But if they propagate and they go to other ones, and this has been the argument for a lot of time, is that in the universe, and bacteria, for example, need multiple points of contact to be healthy and growing, and that also happens at the atomic and at the universe level, and then somewhere in the human beings, we sit outside of that, and that's been a question that I've been looking at, saying, well, what is right? Because human beings seem to step outside of nature in that one way.
Well, for one thing, when I talk about the conscious monogamy idea, is that, people who think that we're with the same person for 20 years or 30 years, you are if you're both committed to stagnation. If you're both on a path of conscious growth, you're changing all the time, right? So you're with a new person all the time if you're both deeply committed to that way of life.
That's the best answer I've ever heard, by the way. That literally is the best answer I've ever heard.
But even like I'm gonna use us as an example for a second. Like, we change so much,
So fast.
so fast, and not just physically and mentally, but like, you started smelling different 2 weeks ago, by
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Your breath smells different. When you start working on people, it smells different, and you're not my partner.
Yeah.
But we spend so much time, together, that even everything is changing all the time. Like, we are definitely
We're an accelerated
we're not even
change.
the same person, or close to. We don't think the same. We don't smell the same. We don't look the same that 6 months ago.
Yeah. But we are in that way because of the evolution. Like, we've gone this path. Biologically, we're changing to. And the reason why I ask these questions is there are things that we've been documenting. Like I've lost my tailbone in 2019, disappeared my coccyx bone, which there is no medical explanation for, and it went away in a day, not in a week or a month. And I have 30 years of medical evidence, and now I have something that's different. So we're in this process of changing, and we're also trying to understand our world of changing. And you get the sensitivity like that, I know exactly when it changed. I know actually what was going on in me. That was a shift in me.
Yeah.
We're that in tune.
Well, I love the idea that we have alchemy with a variety of people. It doesn't necessarily mean we're having intercourse with a variety of
Exactly.
people.
Yeah.
But you can have these, for sure I feel that in my work team, right? Where we'll have a meeting and there's creative ideas flowing and there's a beautiful alchemy that's happening there, right? You can have that with friendships, people who really get you and you can tell them everything, right? There's an alchemy that happens there. That's valuable. That is an essential part of life. I mean, I'm making a line with who you're sharing your most intimate fluids and body with. Right. But as we know, when you're even in the proximity of people, there's a hormonal communication going, there's smell going.
Yeah.
There's
Exactly.
Still, I would say
So
exposed to different bacteria
So I have
in a
a-
positive way.
I think there's an unrealistic perception that one person can give you everything that you need.
And that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with what
Yeah.
you're saying. It's like I have multiple needs. Some people I have deeper conversations with. It may be a male, maybe a female, it doesn't matter. But that fills my cup in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I think we're trained that this one person, this most intimate person that you're with, is the only one that can fulfill you emotionally, mentally, and physically. And I think that that's one of the things to also look at, that being in community, you get multiple versions that fill your cup. You might only be intimate with one, but you have mental stimulation and conversations with another. And I think that that's also an important aspect of it is we're trained to believe that it has to be just one.
I think setting the container is important. We chose to live in community. We combined our finances, our life, and to try and, because we see society going back there, and we said, well, we have to figure out how this works, because if we're leading people in a direction, we don't know how the basic foundation of community, to commune, and cult is gone, because that was extracted out of us by separating us on purpose over the last. We're probably close to the same age, I would say, but I lived at the very end of all the neighborhood moms knew who I was and would feed me and clothe me, and that no longer has existed. So we chose to dive back into community, and what we found is that we've had the ability to work through multiple lifetimes of stuff because of the interactions.
The amount of
Like how
reflections.
many other people would be able to say they noticed my smell change? And it's also been that way for our children. Her child, for example, who's had the ability to grow at infinite amounts because has all these reflections of conscious people to deal with. And we're not the communities that have gone off to Costa Rica and isolated themselves either. We've taken a very different approach. But part of even this conversation is for us to understand, because these are deep conversations. And where does the boundary draw? Like because currently the belief what you're saying is true, and I believe it to be true, but there's also a part that says, because of what we believe a family or what conversations should be had, because there's a societal belief of what conversation, can I talk about my sexual function or dysfunction to her? Is that okay? certain societies and certain people that say that's not okay, and there's certain cultures that would say that is perfectly okay. And this is where we have cultures starting to clash, and we're looking to navigate through these things ourselves.
I think like you brought up earlier, you know yourself. If you're having that conversation with her and you genuinely want a sounding board and want to get her opinion on something versus you're using that conversation as an opening into something a little different, you know exactly.
I may know, but my partner may have a belief system coming from their training.
But then that's
programming.
a way, there's something to work through.
Yeah,
right? We welcome those. Like I'm a big proponent of radical honesty and open communication. And so great, if there's a trigger there, let's talk. If you know 100% that your intent is genuine, right? And then there's something that's being triggered there, well then let's talk, let's use this opportunity, bring it out into the open and heal it and alchemize it and change it into something else.
I'd say that's been our strength.
And I feel also there's a big element, and it goes back to what you were saying, and kind of like what you asked Jason is, but you know in your body.
Yeah.
No, like you always know in your body, but 99% of the people, there's a disconnection, which is the same thing you were saying about like the cycles. It's like, yes, your body's telling you all of these things, but if I use a top or a bra that it's compressing all day, I don't notice the sensitivity in maybe the nipples, that it's telling me that I'm in a certain part of a cycle. If I'm covering perfume, I'm not going to notice the smell change when I'm ovulating.
Sure.
No. So like if that connection and sensitivity is not aware, how can we have deep conversations if we're not connecting to ourselves?
It's definitely harder.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the work that we're doing about removing these layers of programming, helping people to understand the things that are interfering in that signal observation, and coming back to the tabula rasa of the more cleansed human, clean slate human, that then we're building our own communities. We're having that reverberation out into the world of more and more people who are living this way and getting back to that original sense of being able to tune in and read their bodies, be in touch with their emotions. And then they have partners, they have children, and they carry that forward. They have friends, they carry that forward. But yeah, the people who don't know until, they're in a parallel universe, really. Yeah. And until they get, like, I believe too that we all get the call, right? We all get multiple calls. And the difference between people who take the call and don't answer the call is courage. Because if you step out of those like soldier formation, right? You're suddenly the odd person out. You're making different choices. You have different ideas. You're going to look different, smell different, speak different, and you're going to have to weather that storm of being different. Yep. Right? Until you find other different people, right? And then you're suddenly the same amongst a bunch of different people. But that exit out of the control grid is always, in my view, marked by an act of courage.
Yeah.
And nothing else. Everybody does. The thing that marks them is they have the guts to step out of that line. And if you've gone through it, you know what it means. You know the hell that can be to take a stand, be the contrarian, and walk your own path. And everyone has to go through it. It's a rite of passage. And people will be like, oh, no, thanks, not now. And that's fine. Again, like we all have our own path and pace in life. That's fine. But don't for a second believe that that isn't marked by being brave to take a different path.
The journey was, for myself, I was in pain all my life. And even when I was in clinic, I was getting treated all the time. And I was still in pain, but I was being treated. And then when we started doing these crazy little fascial maneuvers, within 3 months, my 30-year journey was starting to unravel itself. And what we found is that when we take the human body out of stress long enough, then we start to be able to self-actualize and come back to that. And that's been our journey. And as a community, we've been unraveling this, but part of what you were saying is true. We've made it cool through literally millions of people to start sharing these things and starting to bring these out to light. Because a lot of people, when they see us on the outside, they see a quick fix. They see something in
Right.
the body.
Oh, if I do this elbow maneuver, then yeah.
Right, but the truth is that's the clickbait to get them to then take a 28-day reset, and then that's the clickbait to do a lifestyle artist program, and then join the community and become activists, and that's why our community is growing by millions, like literally, probably almost over 1 million a month right now worldwide, because what people do is they step in and it becomes in layers. It becomes okay to start expressing themselves and becoming self-aware. But outside of what we're doing, I haven't found anybody else who's doing it at this scale yet. And part of the conversation we're having with you is really important because it's getting back. You believe the same thing. It's about coming back to who we are, natural, and then where we go from there. Who knows? Because I don't even know when the last time as a society we were natural. I don't know. I can't, in current history, in the last 150 years, we weren't, for sure. The time before that, it's all skewed anyways. We don't really know what the records are.
Yeah.
So who knows when human beings have actually, or if we ever have been. That's really the case. I mean, you look at the horrific things we've done through time around, and it's always been around sexual energy. Sexual energy has been the one thing. And one thing I was stimulating earlier is that sex and creation. And you were alluding to that earlier. This is why a lot of my clients were like yours, celebrity clients or Hollywood people originally. And I would notice that they act on a movie together and they're for 6 or 8 months, and the next thing you know, they're married.
Yeah.
Because they're creating together.
Yeah.
And it blurs the lines, and they're highly following that creative flow, and they're like, I just love this person, and then all of a sudden it's like they're in a relationship and they're trying to unwind all the legal and societal problems that come along with that too. But it's when two or more come together in his name or their name or whatever, there's a creation that comes, and we believe that from a healing and a performance perspective.
Thank you so much for being here in this episode with us, and also for being part of this podcast. We bring a lot of heart, and we try to do these podcasts and these conversations with incredible guests for you. If you want to learn more about fascial maneuvers, and this is your first time maybe listening and are a little bit curious, go into the description in the bottom and check out the introduction to fascial maneuvers so you can get to know a little bit more of this practice and start feeling it for yourself. See you soon.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I love most about this work is sexual energy is creative energy. I say I get my best ideas from my vagina or, from having an amazing sexual experience.
I just love the way you talk
It is
about it.
true.
And then running to my laptop to write things down,
Do we get the best
flowing with
ideas from our penis? I've actually, some of my worst
Do I need to
Being
start
in a
talking?
vagina.
Do I need to start talking to him, or
Hello.
hey,
Well,
what direction do I go?
You've
No, you
caused
get
me
it
a
when
lot of
you're
trouble in the
inside of
past.
it.
You've caused me a lot of trouble in the past.
Men, there's even more, we just have such a negative shroud around the genitalia, both men and women.
For
right?
sure, yeah.
And men, I think especially, like there's some idea like, oh, a woman's yoni is beautiful, but a men's penis is not so, like, I don't
evil.
believe that. But there's some more negativity. You're like, oh, it's not a beautiful thing. I'm like, according to who, But there's all these, so much narrative around it, again, that just prevents people
Well, I
from
learned
really
I was a fun guy
accessing.
from it.
A fun guy.
A fun guy.
A fun guy.
Well, it's really
Mushroom.
fun.
Yeah.
It's funny because you look at the statues,
Yes.
all the ancient statues. Like
Yes.
we were just talking about this the other day. You walk in the street and you just see one right on the
Yeah.
statue, and you're like, it was normalized. It was an
Yes.
art piece back in the day. Now
Well, they
it's
did the
all-
Olympics nude.
Did they?
Yeah, all the Olympics were performed nude originally in Greece.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so all the athletes were nude.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they knew at that time we're about fascia. When you restrict the fascia, even like what we've done is reduced all the restrictions, like a t-shirt,
Yeah.
the shorts that aren't too tight. The only thing we haven't done is wore the long robes or dresses or whatever they call them, the sarongs. But they knew back then that you perform better when you're unrestricted.
Well, even if you go like swim naked, you feel different. Like it's like the elastic band on your body is the clothing, and it's the sun on your body. Like, do you talk much about sun and being outside in the sun and how that impacts your sexual energy?
I'm a big proponent of sun exposure, and
especially on genitalia.
especially on genitalia.
Yeah, it's massive.
Good 5-10 minutes a day and I'm all about high noon too, right? Is that's the highest like peak energy of the sun, and that's when I bring my genitals out into the sun. And so that's I'm all about it. And I always, whenever people like don't go in the sun, I'm immediately like, okay, I don't respect you. I can't take you seriously.
These are all program mechanisms. Like we put a post the other day about sunburn, because I'm Anglo-Saxon, so
right.
I'm the guy that would be 15 to 30 minutes in the sun. I get burned my whole life, but I don't anymore. You know what burns you in the sun? You know why we get burned? Heavy metals burn inside the skin. Because we didn't get sunburn 7,500 years ago. How did we do it? It makes sense. You got mercury, you got lead, you got in your actual fascial tissue is where it sits. That's what's burning. That's why we get sunburned. When you clear out the heavy metals, no more sunburn. That was my experience.
Right.
Yeah.
I love hearing that, especially from people who have that idea or experience that they can't be in the sun very long.
I was the guy. I was the guy that got burned on every vacation. Had one drink too many, and the whole vacation was ruined.
Yeah. Well, I get high. If I go, especially naked, naked. Like if you do it normally, but if you're naked, it's like a hit. It's like you smoke something.
Yeah, I agree. I time my day around noon sun exposure. Meetings in the morning, in the afternoon, but then between 12 and 2, you can't touch me. So I have to be out on the beach.
But you have a prime time to be out in the sun during the day. Mm-hmm. Do you find that there's a prime time to be intimate in a day?
Great question. I love the idea of morning sex, and that's what I really try to promote to people, because many people the two big excuses are we're tired and we have kids. So if you get up an hour early in the morning and you start your day off with a bang, that you're priming yourself with all of these neurotransmitters and hormones, you're fresh, rather than at the end of the day, it's 10 at night and you're done, you're spent.
Can I throw something at you though? Sure. I mean, that's society, that's the way we live, but can I tell you something about the human body?
Sure.
Between 7-11 is when the triple burner and the
AM or PM?
PM. Mm-hmm. So every organ in the body has a circadian rhythm, and our sexual organs, which is the conductor of sex, is not actually the genitalia, but it's the fascia. It's the energetic exchange, is most available between 7-11 at night. But it's because of our lifestyle that I'm completely open to morning sex, because in the morning you have your stomach, which is desire, from 7 to 9 a.m. So that's actually when you're the most desire. And then from 9 to 11, your spleen, which could be worry or trust. And then, but your fascia is most open to exchange energy between 7 and 11 p.m. But the stomach does create desire. So that's why it's naturally to have, and that's also why men often wake up with a hard on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a biological thing, but then from a fascial perspective, and that's just because society is the way it is. If we didn't work, because we weren't meant to work the way that we work. The average person only 100 years ago worked 12 hours a day to provide subsistence. 12 hours a week to provide subsistence, food, shelter, clothing, all that stuff. Today it's ramped up. So because of society, that makes sense. But from an purely energetic perspective, your biggest exchange happens between 7 and 11 p.m.
Be interesting to follow that within a couple who was moderating in their energy, meaning they weren't exhausted from any particular thing by the end of the day. So I start there with people because that takes away the two big excuses, right? Their kids aren't up yet, they're not tired. So morning sex to at least establish a rhythm and a pattern. And I would say in a couple who's operating at a high level of connection and intimacy and what I call a sexual simmer, right? That energy of erotic connection is always humming between them. Anytime is fine. Right? So it could be morning, evening, middle of the day. Couples even will miss sleep because they're getting so much energy charge from the sex that they wake up and they're high, they're floating. Mm-hmm. They're even more effective at work and anything they do in the day.
It's the programming for sure, because we used to go to the fire and we danced during the fire, and then that was the stimulation.
Right. Yeah.
That's how humans. But I know we made modifications, and I agree with what you're saying, because of the way that we live our lives. But we're proposing that we just shouldn't live our lives that way, and that's what we did. Is we unlocked and changed our rhythms. So like we work 7 days a week, but we don't actually work. And people ask us all the time, like, well, when do you take time off? And I'm like, we're actually doing what we love, and we're doing it in a way that we love, and we're doing it in a healthy capacity. We're in nature, we stay in places where this is unusual for us. We're usually at an ocean or at a forest, but we're doing this to be here with people. And we've incorporated that into our life, living a different life so that we can break those patterns, because we have conformed as a society to the way that we work and stuff like that. But we also do, I believe, and we believe that's unraveling in the next 2 to 3 years. Right now, things like AI and technology is going to change the way that we actually live. And we're not aware of it yet, but it is going to radically alter everything that we know. And by the way, that's when I say that circadian rhythm, that's Chinese medicine. That's 10,000 years ago. Yeah. So that's actually when they would have said that was the best time.
You said earlier, when you work with people, most people aren't able to get to the layers that you talk about. Have you met anybody who's already at that level, like a couple that's there? And what about them did you feel actually helped them achieve those levels?
I didn't say that most people can't achieve those layers.
Oh, no, sorry, that you meet aren't there yet.
Yes, I did say that.
Yes.
So have I met anyone who's at that place?
Yeah,
before you?
Not at the level that they've gone to within my work. No. I feel like there's portals within that they may have been in different ways at a high
parts
average.
Of it?
Yeah,
parts of it, but not all of it.
Right, like a couple had an orgasmic birth. Yeah. Right, and they have frequent sex. They wouldn't complain about their sex life, but then they've taken all of this to the next level, and things are just blown their mind and their lives.
So what would be those qualities of things that couple shares that gets them to that level?
Good question. We've become accustomed to having to prod our partner, pull teeth, convince them, prod them, as though that's a normal way of being in a relationship. Or some people have become accustomed to that, versus having someone who's like, that sounds amazing, I'm in, what do we do? Right? That's the only answer. There is no other answer. If you have a partner who's not that way, what are you doing? You are just hanging out in limbo and killing time. Unless you want a relationship that's committed to stagnation, which a lot of people do, rather than a relationship committed to growth.
Is that to intimacy and sex, or is that to everything? So it's like, hey, I want to go on a trip. Yes, let's go.
For the most part, unless it's radically against something that you're terrified of heights and your partner wants to go skydiving, right? You can choose I want to, remedy that in myself, or it's just not my thing. You go with your friends, right? But something integral to the relationship, communication, sex, intimacy, yes, all of that needs to be 150% in. Yes, always. And when you're existing at that high level of superpower couple gourmet sex, it is a yes, because you're constantly in this space of having clear, open communication, deep connection. You're not working through things all the time from a stagnant place, because you're doing it as a way of life, right? So being willing to play, explore, try new things. So having, I guess, a spirit of adventure and courage, right? We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm willing to try and willing to do it with you. I think that's honestly the biggest factors.
One of the things that came up when you were saying that is that those relationships happen when you have the right partner. But one of the things we talk about when we take people off of birth control is they find out that they have the wrong partner. So a lot of that, again, because of belief systems, society conditioning, and current propaganda on what's healthy or what to do and not to do, has led people in the wrong relationships. And that's what I believe is unwinding over the next couple of years, by the way, is the people are starting to find their tribes or their belief systems, and that's why there's so many relationships literally ending in the last 2 years. And we see that increase, radically increasing over the next 2 years, because people finding out I actually want to do this, or I want to be like this, and I don't want this part of the relationship. But I got dragged into that because of sometimes a chemical belief, and this whole thing of birth control was choosing the wrong partners. We have a lot of women, when they're coming off birth control, they'll call us, they'll message us, like, we get millions of health questions a month. And sometimes one of the scariest thing is, I want to come off birth control, but I don't want to lose my partner. And they literally
They already
are,
know that's a possibility.
well, they're afraid because they heard it. And, you know, most of the time, my experience is when they're having that discussion, they won't lose their partner. It's the ones who come off it for another reason, you know, not thinking about it, and then they wind up. But we have been poisoned and chemically confused for so long that you talked about, which is, hey, let's go anywhere and do anything. That's your life partner. But a lot of times we're not with our life partners. We were put together for other reasons.
Well, the proof is in the pudding, right? Because I think when there is that deeper resistance, people will show it's, well, I don't have time for that, or yeah, I'll do that, but they don't, right? Like that becomes very clear. Let's say you gallop along, and that's what I say, gallop along at this pace. And if something needs to come out in the wash, and I guess worst case scenario is somehow you find you're incompatible, then you deal with that, right? And now you both have the confidence and the energy to make those choices.
You find the right person.
Yeah. Right. But you might, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you chose them when you were on birth control that they're going to be the wrong person.
No,
I know there's that study,
there's not.
right?
I was just saying
that,
more so that I even think about, you know, people that I have relationships with, not only intimate relationships, but partnerships, business partnerships, and that. The best ones are always been the yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that seems to work. And it seems to work both ways too. So I'm totally agreeing with you. I was just as you were talking about it, I was thinking, man, how many times have I seen this when people come out and they realize that they were completely with the wrong person for different reasons. And we also get programming, arranged marriages. We've got programming come out of high school. I got pregnant.
Yeah.
That was my first wife. It was like, I got pregnant. Well, I'm going to do the manly thing, and I'm going to, I'm going to marry you. And that was, with no disrespect to her, she's a wonderful lady, but that's what happened. And these are all things that I think, because there's malfunctions in society, we often didn't have the ability to find the right person.
Well, all those layers of conditioning, trauma, things that we've taken on that skew our intuition and our ability to choose clearly, right? And in a healthy way. So we're choosing from a handicapped place, a distorted place, blurred vision. But once that gets clear, then if both people are on that path, like I said, they'll either be moving together and keep together, or they'll both be fully okay with, all right, maybe we weren't the right match.
So you've got a relationship and two of them are interested in so let's do this. But there's also consequences or impacts on others.
Do you mean if you were to split up? What do you mean?
Well, like, let's say somebody wants to go and do something and it impacts more than just their partner. So their partner can say, I'm all in.
What's the example of go do something?
Travel. Like if you want to go and move to another country.
Well, my non-negotiable yes was in the context of communication, sex, intimacy, right? When you're talking about all these other very
responsible decisions. Yeah, that's where I'm going at it.
I mean, I think that's a sense of
weighed out.
Yeah, you work that out.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
just
drawing a line between what it is and,
I hear what you're saying. It's because it's more about the willingness.
Yeah.
And if there's the willingness, everything else works, because I might not be able, like for me, if I have found even in my own personal life, if I'm willing to do something, then I don't have the pain of whatever it is I have to do. If I'm not willing to do it, that's
and you do it anyways, and there's pain.
Yeah, that's where the pain is.
100%. Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish those lines too, because there's impacts on others too when we have that willingness.
Yeah, if there's a willingness, but there's a responsibility that I've got to hold out. I have kids, I have a business, or I can't leave because of this.
Yeah.
These are all things that we deal with now.
Yeah, but those become wrenches in relationships.
And if you let them,
they can.
I think they can.
Tell you the solution.
This is the whole story. So before you can give a solution,
we are in that place right now where, you know, one wants to move to a different part of the world, but I have a kid.
Not travel, not move.
Well, not travel, no, but I have a child with another person that is involved in my daughter's life. No, so then it's like that conversation where it involves more than two people. And it's like, it might be, you know, like a yes, but certain things need to be arranged and find a way, no? So I think that's kind of like what he's asking between lines.
Well, no, because this is a serious one. What I was drawing the line, I think it's very important to draw the line of what that yes is. One is what you're saying, it's about the intimacy and the connection between each other. Versus another one is like responsible decisions as a family.
I don't know. The way you phrase that question makes me feel like you need to put something up your because, and I mean this in the most loving way, when people are really in their mind, like when you get stuck and going in circles in your mind, the best way to get out of that is to shove something up your ass. Because, well, the way you phrase it, it's like I just feel you turning it in your mind. And I always believe, like, if there's a problem, A and B are the options, C is the answer.
There's a social, where you're actually saying there's a biological and history around that, the Greeks.
But before you go into the
but it wasn't what people think it was.
No, but I think that part of it is.
No, I'm sorry. I'm serious. It wasn't what we made it out to be, but there's actually a truth to that statement.
The reason why I ask these questions is because I'm bringing up real examples that people deal with every single day.
Okay, I'm saying that the magic of a high-level, elevated sex connection will solve that problem for you in a way that you never thought of with your mind.
Yeah, because it triumphs everything.
You're coming up, yes. I hear that you're asking this from this mental place.
Well, I'm asking everything
I know it's
that
logical and it's practical, but my experience with this is when I've had these change your life, transformational sexual experiences, I walk out of that room and I'm a changed person. I have been reborn. I was studying Maslow's hierarchy of needs like when I was 17, and I had a cervical orgasm when I was 16. So I must have been 16 when I was studying it. And I was like, this is what it means. The self-actualization idea of all these conditioned layers just peeling off of me and me coming out of this feeling more like myself than I ever have, just from having a cervical orgasm and this great sexual experience. And that is thank goodness I had that, because that is the foundation of all of my work, right? Is that sex is this deep portal of transformation and spiritual evolution. That is the core of my work, right? So I had that experience very young, and that has been the imprint for everything I do. But also out of that is emerging what, like, you know, this is the mind. You talked about the mind being a machine, you know, that churns things out, right? Like it's like a good computer.
The brain, not the mind.
The brain, mind.
Well, there's a difference.
Okay, well.
Okay, and sorry, just.
Mechanic, brain, I use them synonymously, but you might have a different
Well, the mind is the
definition.
observation of the brain and then the body together, so.
All right, we'll say some version of mental churning.
Yeah, okay,
let's call it that.
Yeah.
And then you end up here at this place of being connected to the divine, much more in touch with your intuition, and you come up with these solutions that work for everybody that you didn't even think possible. That
solution you didn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're tapping into it.
Yeah, you're connecting to that energy.
Yeah. But, you know, like, the body is about polarity. And this is what we're teaching, is that the body doesn't start here. It actually starts out here. That's why I was talking about the fascia. And that polarity, all biological function happens from a reaction from an electrical or frequency. And this is what we're not taught. And this is what we're using right now, what looks like magic and healing of people, is we're using the biological frequency. And so when you go polarity from here to here, there's polarity because this tissue is the exact same tissue as this tissue. There are two ends of the spectrum. And in between those two, there is an electrical connection. And when you said that, I was laughing so hard because the first thing that I did when I tried, because I was having issues with my hips and my pelvis, and I knew it in clinic, I knew the one thing I need to do is rotate the fascia in there. I took my wife's, put it up my ass and turned it and sat on it and bear down on it and started breathing, and it unraveled the inside of my intestine, my organs, because our emotions, our organs are connected to our emotions. Our emotions emote, to energy and motion is the way that we move through the world, and when there's a blockage, there's a blockage. And so you're right, most guys should have something shoved up there.
So let's dive into that for a moment. Why do you say that? Like, what is it that you see in men that they need to have that type of experience?
It depends on the man and it depends on the person, how they're speaking to me. I see it in men more, maybe just the way we're trained. You know, men default more to a certain logic, women to emotion, not necessarily because we are that way, but we're definitely conditioned to be that way. And so with men, when I can just see a question churning and they're stuck, which is what I sensed in you when you were asking me that, then I right away know that guy needs something up his ass and I'll tell him, right? And I mean it, you know.
We're gonna need a meme of this, please.
I'm gonna get memed from this.
Oh my God, Jason needs something up his ass. That is gonna be like.
Oh,
timeless.
just like I can just see it's like, what are the possibilities? Let's share them out here, and we'll have 1,000 memes on that. If you're a doctor, a practitioner, or a coach, and you're wanting to take your practice to the next level and move people from you care to self-care, this entire revolution of self-care is moving on, and we want you. Become a mentor of people's health rather than a fixer of people's health. The certified coaching program is designed to help you transition out of a practice which draws all the energy out of you to a practice that brings life to you and others. Join below with our certified coaching program and transform your career, your business, and your life.
So what you're saying is based on like a blockage or the way someone's communicating something.
Yeah, the way I hear it, like a mental churning, right? Like that.
But is it a sense that you're getting, or is it the way that a question's being framed?
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
Because what I'm really trying to do is break down all of the different issues that people experience in life, which is from semen retention all the way through to birth control, to not being able to connect with their partner, to a woman not being able to have an orgasm. And so what I'm doing is I'm reverse engineering all these issues that people experience, including things that I've experienced, and asking those questions. So is it something that is it the way that somebody's energy comes off, or is it the way that they frame their words when they're talking to you that you can sense that?
Like I said, it's both.
Mm-hmm.
It's the energy and then the words and whatever. Even
it's kind of like when we tune into people.
Tension or emotion behind it too, right? That I can hear and pick up on.
Well, it's like when we talk to people, you can feel if their organs are off.
Sure.
You can feel if their body's out of place.
When you're reading people, especially when you have the magical tool of being able to palpate and observe a body, right? Because you start to see the patterns. And when you work with enough people, thousands of people, you become, it's like 100%, you know what when this is happening, this is gonna be corresponding to that, right? And so it's a sense of palpation that you're using every tool you have, the voice, the tenor of the voice, the posture, things held in the body, like everything.
We do that. I think he was trying to get to is
I'm trying to
do it
understand
as well as we do.
Yeah.
And like in this last year, we've personally put our hands on 15 or 20,000 people each, and in doing that, it reconnects what we're already doing, which is I have a feeling now, I have a physical reinforcement, confirmation.
Yeah.
So if somebody were to do that,
Shove something up there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What is that changing in their physiology and their energy or their pathways?
Well, if we use the metaphor that we already talk about in our culture, right? A tight ass, that guy's got to stick up his ass, right?
We say it for a reason.
We say it for a reason.
Yeah.
There needs to be unwinding there. And there's even this extra taboo, the dark place where our shit is stored, right? So when we go up there, we go demon hunting up, right? We're inviting that to unwind, to open, to release.
So can I tell you something biological?
Sure.
Is that when you bear down, you always bear down because your digestion always goes in one direction. You always bear down in one way. And the rectum through the large intestine is grief. But and when you unravel the epithelial tissue it actually will unravel all the way through up to the throat. And that was it was literally one of the most, when I learned about the fascia, I'm like, took a ball, put it up my, and twisted and held it there. And I thought, well, that didn't do anything. I laid down in the bed, and then all of a sudden I could feel unraveling. And then I realized that it's because our organs are emotions, or how we emote through the world. That's actually our connection to our field, technically. And when you get a tight or you have a stick up your ass, it's because you've been bearing down the wrong way without receiving over time. And metaphorically and truthfully, what happens inside our body is reflected outside in every way. And I know you believe that as well.
It's also the intestines too,
The
which is your
intestines,
brain.
Yeah.
So it's another way to get there. I mean, we do movements on the outside.
But we do have a sphincter release, which we we took the guy who made Raw of Earth, who made pole tanning popular.
Yeah.
So we demonstrated a couple of years ago the sphincter release. It was good for a couple million views. But the truth of that release is so powerful. We actually did it in clinic, but we would do it over top of the yoga pants, and we just take a ball. It still works.
Right.
But there's also like releases you can do on your penis and also intervaginally.
I could tell you, inch, and every man has 1.5 inches, and I proved it, and we're just trying to find a way to appropriately put this in the video so people can do it. Not about size, but it's more about when you actually increase the length of the penis, it actually moves the hips back out, because the compression in, I was circumcised, that actually compresses.
Right.
You know, people who are uncircumcised are generally taller.
And bigger.
And bigger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're contracting, you're shrinking away. And generally, circumcised guys have more incidences of premature ejaculation because they're afraid. They're bailing out of the experience as fast as possible.
yeah, so I mean, those are all topics I'd love to take down with you at some point.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about intervaginal and releases for the penis, because have you noticed? Is there ever a time where you're directing somebody based on what you feel or see, that they do something specific to their body in that way?
Well, from the Taoist reflexology map, where they've mapped out these zones on in the vagina, then the cervix. I talk a lot about the essential nature of cervical orgasms for women. It's the heart point for women. Yeah. It's connected to the vagus nerve, goes all the way up through the heart to the crown chakra. Women often feel or say that they've seen God, right? They have these otherworldly, transcendent experiences. That was my first orgasm, right? That's why we're all here, really.
And most women have to have vaginal versus cervical, right? External versus internal, because internal is really the actual connection.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
100%.
okay.
They couldn't.
And because I hear this a lot, you have to stimulate the outside, but I'm actually, if a woman can connect to that inside, that's where all the magic really happens. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
No, and you have to be able to do all of them. I gave that all the way through the spine. And
yeah, but I mean, I'm all about the good stuff is in the vagina, right? The is 10%. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Well, doesn't it go inside too?
It goes in through a ball, but it's kind of like saying your elbow is connected to your knee.
Yeah, okay.
It is, but it is really distinct as well, right?
Well, men have 3 knees. The right knee, the left knee, and the weenie.
Yeah. He's dad joke central.
Yeah, he's on fire today.
So the cervix is, to me, the most important stimulation point for women. Like if you only had a woman only had cervical orgasms for the rest of her life, that's enough. That'll do the trick. There's so many more, right? There's like 11, but nipplegasm, orgasm.
No wonder there's books on this.
But,
it's so complicated.
I learned all this stuff just through playing with the body. I didn't read a book that
so
told me about my cervix.
That's our whole thing.
To me, well, that's what I think makes you masterful. Right? Because you learned it through the body. You didn't read a book and learn about it.
That's actually what we're teaching. We're unwinding even doctors and practitioners all over the world, saying,
play with yourself.
Yeah, experience. If you experience it, it's an inner knowing. If you learn it, you'll forget it, or you don't understand it.
And then you speak with such confidence because you know, right? You know it, and then you see it with people you start working with in a smaller circle becomes a bigger circle, and you see the same thing over and over again. And when you speak, your voice is solid, right? You're communicating that truth,
authentic.
that authenticity and truth that people, we have our own internal divining rod that we hear that tone and that energy and we perk up because we're like, yeah, that sounds like truth.
Yeah.
So the stimulation is so important for women. or that especially the cervix, but everything in the vagina. Most vaginas are numb, right? They haven't been, they've been dissociated, they haven't been stimulated well. Women don't feel anything, so they don't bother with them. Women are all told that this is the only orgasm that women can have. Some women have orgasms, but they're there, little girl. Don't worry if you don't, it's okay, right? Where I'm, no, 100% every woman can. For the, I'd say that like it's the de-armoring is like that, especially if a man's been circumcised, is a lot of massage, right? And I'm sure you have your own techniques for that too, but loving, connected, healing, activating with the intention to adore and heal, and works on the yoni too, but I think especially in men who've had that trauma experience, so that men really occupy their, right? That, like that example I gave at the beginning, like you have the man and you have the, right? And the man is fully occupied in his body and the becomes a barometer for the man, right? When the man is solid and powerful and strong, so is the erection. And when he's not, when he's tentative and unsure, it's not. And men have grown in my work too, right? Like a good inch and a half in length and girth solely through the occupying.
It's so
of that
interesting
energy.
you say that, because when I'm more masculine, my body changes. Like if I start acting more masculine in my day-to-day, I smell different, my body shifts to be more masculine. If I act more feminine, then it becomes more feminine. It's like she's pointed it out over the last couple of years, like every time I change the way that I behave, my body starts to reflect that.
Because she notices by this.
Yeah, by the smell,
Yeah,
by
but you
the
walk
look.
in a room, you smell different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could smell you about 5 minutes ago, like a nervous sweat. And it like smell.
Yeah,
There's
his
a smell
fear,
of fear,
all of his emotions
anxiety.
smell
I have
quite
a good-
different.
Yeah, I have a lot of smells.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I grew over the years to like with a partner, know the smell of when they're afraid, like a
Yeah.
fear, anxiety smell,
So,
right? There's a smell
You know
to that.
what happened for me, where I started changing is initially in the clinic, we were doing 2-hour treatments. So I'd be over top of the body for 2 hours. And I noticed a pattern that when someone was releasing fear or holding on, I'd say, I'd smell a smell. I'd say, let go of the fear or let go of the anger. And I noticed that because I have my elbow in the old days, it was elbow into the, and I started noticing I could tell all these different emotions by smell. And this is just through repetition.
Yeah.
Working on 7 to 12 people a day, 6 days a week over years. And again, we're disconnected with all these sensory processing. Like one of the things even is like Botox is a big one. We put Botox in the face, it disturbs the orgasmic process because you can't see the facial expression of the person.
Yeah.
And the facial expression, the eyes and the forehead wrinkling are super important in the combined experience. Like we have all these different things, everything from smells to the way we look to the way that the bodies feel and touch. Like when the body's has more estrogen, it's softer. When it has more testosterone, it's tougher.
It's all these things that create interference fields, right? Like that all these things are interfering with that ability to read our own signals and other people's signals, where I love that we have this common language of observing these things to get information.
We're learning.
Yeah.
But even like from the connection and like that inner connection that we were talking about and intimacy and everything, like from the cervical part, no? Like when I don't feel connected to my partner or like to achieve that is not, I don't even feel it comes down enough that, it wants to be stimulated. It's like it highs. It's like, this is not a friendly penis. And it goes high.
Yeah.
No, but really,
it does.
doesn't want to be touched.
Absolutely.
But when you feel, or when I feel that like deep connection and everything, it's like immediately it comes down, no? And it like wraps it in a point that is, you barely need to move. You just need to breathe pretty much.
Yeah.
No, so I feel there's a physical reaction.
There is a biological
Very different when, that moves and it's like, no, like you don't have permission or you don't have access or I don't feel ready or I don't feel connected.
It's felt. Yeah,
Well,
it feels like, honestly, it feels like you're being pushed out.
Yeah.
and you're having to force yourself in, which
Yeah.
doesn't feel good.
Never force yourself
You know,
in.
the part of humans which is the biological, like where people may believe how we were created. I have my own belief, and but in nature, those are all true things, and that's part of the human experience. Is that in nature and animals, when they procreate and they're ready, things come out. They present themselves, but we have socialization, which is I have to, which means which back to your case is if I'm not wet, I'm not ready. Listen, this conversation is getting better, and it can go on forever. We have a time limit. We have to wrap this up, and maybe we can just take some closing points here. I do want to have another conversation, because I think at the deeper level, I have some belief systems and some stuff that I've observed in working with people that I haven't shared, but I think I'm okay to share them with you.
Yeah.
And so we could do that at another time.
Yeah.
But
Could I ask two questions that I feel are really important, and we could rapid fire them. One is, how important is sound and breath when being intimate with somebody?
I'd say crucially important.
Yeah.
So sound liberates you, and I'm sure you'd have a fascial, explanation for this. But I think a lot of people are naturally, maybe unnaturally, mute during sex. And I had a partner years ago who was like, look, I'm ADD, and when we're intimate, I need to talk. I'm like, okay, sure, we can talk. He's like, no, I think I have to talk the whole time.
Whoa.
I need a conversation running the entire time for me to stay present. I'm like, all right, challenge accepted, And so we're in and I'm just like, okay, what do I talk about? And I just started whatever I could do, right? I'm running my fingers up your forearm. I'm touching your elbow. Ooh, nice bicep. Yeah, just whatever, right? Oh, I feel my breath in my chest. And after a few times of being together, after that, something happened in me. Well, then talking and emoting verbally during sex became much easier. I made it through some threshold. But then he would call me and I would get aroused and then even have an orgasm just by hearing his voice. It unlocked something in me in another dimension from the sound. And so everything from moans, sighs, talking, all of it, and I'll tell people if they're trying to get over that hump, is that just force yourself to speak like I did, right? It can be almost gibberish. It doesn't matter. As long as your mouth is open, your throat is open, words are coming out, that will help open up this whole other dimension sexually.
But what if we're on a
very
podcast
important.
and I start talking and somebody else starts having an orgasm?
That's a gift. Don't lift a gift. Don't look a gift
how
to
can you-
orgasm
Why
in
is
the
that
mouth.
a problem?
How would you be able to focus in
How do you
conversation?
know? I don't have them through the day.
Say fuck yes. Say yes. Say fuck yes.
So it's all frequency, and that's, what I've learned in my later years is that I used to think the sex was biological, but, in recent time, what I realize is the frequency makes it happen, and frequency can be, so we go back into our memory banks from our experience, and we draw on that memory base. Sometimes it's a sight of something, it's a sound, it's a touch, it's a smell, but those are all sensory processing, which then elicit a response from the body. So the fascia is acoustic. Sound is, and we're not these biological animals that we're taught. We're very, very complex. And so that makes a lot of sense. And also when you're connecting to sounds are primordial. So they go back into the root brain, into the real brain. Yeah.
But also Aisha, when she wanted to remember things, she would swipe her body. You would get a massage, and she would memorize a speaking gig. And when she was on stage and would forget about the moment, she would rub her body in the
same
exact
way.
Okay, you might have heard me say this.
So what she's
remember.
Yeah. But the point is that what I hear you saying is you're in that feeling of an orgasm, and the words of him speaking is almost anchoring or tying the words to the feeling.
Yes.
And she used to do this when she's on stage. If she would forget the words, she would do the massage on herself. All of a sudden, the words would come out. You're anchoring that orgasm into the voice.
Well, it's that, but
priming.
it's like other like I somebody, right? Voice somebody, being able to then penetrate and connect with someone on all these multiple levels where we think of like penis and vagina, but there's all these energy sex. I can have sex with my partner when he's on the other side of the planet and actually feel that, and so could he, right? So this is all, when we expand our ideas and experiences, these are the things that start to happen, that high-level sexual activity even activates these things in the body and the system.
What we were talking about out here, it's the we've been taught the human experience is here, but the human experience is actually out here.
Right.
And that's where the quantum, the dimensional,
Yeah.
but when we're in stress, we live in here.
Sure, yeah.
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 But the swiping apart, you know why? Because it's remembering, right? Yeah, because to dismember the body, take it apart. If you want to remember, you put the body parts back together, because this is the storage isn't here.
Yeah.
The brain doesn't actually have storage. That's a lie.
So let's go into the prostate.
Well, breath,
And the
I'll
G-spot.
just answer
Oh,
the
yeah,
breath
breath.
part, is breath moves energy throughout the body. And so just by breathing deeply, you will improve your sexual experience. You'll have sensations throughout the body.
Yeah.
Men will improve their stamina immediately. You'll have better orgasms. When most people are contracted, they're holding and clenching in the body, they're breathing shallow or tightening,
Which drives up,
and then
which drives up
passing out.
adrenaline, which takes away your stamina.
Right.
Because adrenaline is the lack of performance.
So breathing differently makes you last longer.
Yeah.
Yes, and will improve your experience exponentially.
It makes you feel way more also.
Of course. Yeah, you're stepping
Gets you in your body too, right? Where you could be dissociating, you just bring yourself right back.
And it's like if you could move the orgasm through the whole body and just have like the whole body instead of just that area.
That was the experience I had as the fascia started to open up. I had a full body orgasm where it was every tissue and fiber of my body. And I was like, I don't ever remember having that before. It was something that was new, and that was when our fascia really started opening up. I had that experience.
Well, I find even going back to the tantric, semen retention to breathing to sound, is I find like there's a myth that men can't have multiple orgasms.
Oh.
But I've experienced, either prolonged or multiple just by using all the things that we're talking about today.
I started.
Are you finding that that's also something that you talk to men about?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, men could have, especially if you're practicing orgasm without ejaculation, you could have 8, 10, 20 orgasms in a row in a setting, and then...
When I was a kid, that was how it started. And then somewhere it became a single one, and then it came back. But I would have like 8 or 9 or 10. And then it just kind of went away, and I didn't know why. And that was conditioning, programming, stress on the body, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, ask me your
Yeah.
magic ass question.
Well, so the prostate, there's the G-spot in men. What is the secret to that? What are you seeing when people are stimulated there? What does that do for men's health? What does that do for their energy? Does it expand them? Does it loosen them? Does it change their body physiologically?
It's a turbo boost, an amplifier, much like the way vaginal orgasms are for women. They're deeper, they're more emotional. The G-spot, even with the very act of being penetrated as a man, right? Huge symbolism there, vulnerability, openness. I've seen men have similar kinds of I saw God, full, deep emotional releases, and a sense of liberation. Again, that any penetration will give that sense of opening, release, letting go, digging into deep. But the actual prostate, stimulating that, it's a turbo boost button to unlock even more in the man, and especially on these deeper emotional levels. So things that have been stuck in them, it's a great way to just like a magic button to push and help open that up. But the man has to be open to that, right? Like, again, yes, but it's different to maybe have an intellectual yes versus in my body, I'm going to trust and let go and open up into this experience.
Back to the Greeks. I'm going to say this with a look at society that most people don't get to, is that we have a belief about what is right or what is wrong today, and we look back at the history and we judge history based upon something. There was something way more to the act, because they said it was sodomizing, but there was something way more to the act that was well practiced back then, that had something that connected them to power. And one of the greatest civilizations of mankind. I'm not even saying I know what it is, but But we look at that was actually a practice by the Greek men. But it wasn't a sexual thing.
Yeah.
It was not. It was not a sexual thing, and it was not a control thing. It was actually a liberation thing. But again, we have this belief system here, and we look from our eyes looking back at that and saying that's what it was. And
Well, you caught me off guard earlier because the programming on that is so deep, right? And it's like, but there's actually health benefits to doing these types of things.
for sure.
And energetic changes that happen. And so it's even though that I know that, it still goes into the programming that I'm unwinding as a man.
Well, it's a great one for men because the G-spot being, I often say it's God's little humor trick, because men then have to confront this idea. Well, does that mean I'm gay if I like something up my ass, right? And that's great. Anytime there's a taboo, there's a fear field like that, awesome. That is a perfect place for alchemy and an energy storage that's locked up there that we can open up and use for ourselves.
Well,
right?
that's the magic of creation, is that, within the places that we have the most resistance or the most change. And that's not just physical, that's in every aspect of life.
Well, the programming is so deep.
Programming
with
is
everything. Like, don't eat this, don't do this, don't do that. But at the end of the day, it's like what you're saying. It's like you're gay if you do that, is the programming today. But there's also a lot of ancient practices and even back in the Greek days where they're doing that because it unlocks something inside of you.
It
but
unravels.
we've been taught to shame it, to fear it, and that label people who are open to those kinds of things. And so when you brought it up earlier, like it just made me realize I still have a little bit of that programming in me. And it's unwinding that.
You should have saw it, because when I did it in the clinic and I realized it unlocked my hips, and by the way, there's a lot of men who have hip tension and who actually do this on a regular basis, but they don't tell anybody because the programming is so deep. Is the best way to unlock the pelvic floor is literally to insert and rotate counterclockwise, sit down and bear on it and breathe on it. That actually unravels the pelvic floor, and almost every guy has a tight pelvic floor. And a lot of women do too. And
It's learning to receive.
but I used to tell people that in the clinic, because I'm like, wow, it worked for me. I'm going to tell you, and I have no shame over it at all. And the looks on men's face was just women's face. The looks were unbelievable. I'm like, no, take it, shove it up.
Hey, I just got that right now. I was like, wait, what?
But it's because, like, part of my journey has been to remove the taboo. And I've been very, very vocal about that, because where the shock value is where the growth is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have no problem. I love shocking people. And I know you do too. So.
It's playful, it's fun, and it's disarming, right? That bit of humor or shock, it's to break the energy up. It's really what we're doing, right? In a fun way.
Yeah.
And a playful way. And I'd say, as that kind of summary, right? The things that we're talking about, like, even this is such a great example of the activation. If people remove all of the conditioning and ideas that they've been fed about what sex really is, and you're looking at it as this pure life force energy that we all need to have liberated, right? Rather than all of the collection of obscuring ideas that have been placed on top of it. That's the essence of it. Right? And so the techniques, the movements, the suggestions are about, okay, great, how do we unlock that energy, which is super fuel in the body?
If we looked at it that way, just from an energetic perspective, and that was the key to success in life, and everybody saw that, then all of the paradigms and myths would go away. And I truly believe that's where we're going. We're coming to a higher frequency, higher consciousness of human beings, and having these discussions are really important, because if we don't break down, society doesn't change when it adheres to old programming, and old programming is what keeps us locked. Our words liberate us or limit us, and our words are our distillation of our thoughts, and our thoughts are directed by our beliefs, and we can change it. Just as the beliefs affected the words, we can actually change it at the word level to circumvent the disprogramming of people. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about reprogramming the human experience. And it starts off with the simplest of things, the words I choose. I really appreciate the words that you've chosen today and the conversation. It's been increasingly fun to talk to you as we've gone through this journey.
Love it. So thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoyed this content, follow us on social media channels, The Human Garage Experience, Apple, Spotify, and all other channels. We're on a mission to inspire 1 billion people worldwide, and the way that you participate is by liking, subscribing, and sharing our content. Every share that you take brings us one step closer to that billion people. This has been a fantastic episode. We enjoyed presenting it to you. Be a part of this worldwide revolution and share it now.